I also think this fight could have been on a prelim, even a main event prelim, to get us excited for this main card. You know, got Darren Elkins and Darrick Minner. Now, the cool thing about this fight is it's kind of got that similar journeyman trying to make their, mark on the UFC late in their careers. But the cool thing about Minner is I just feel like he's finally earned his keep at this level. You can talk about just how long it took him to get there. Even the, Dana White Contender Series loss to Herbert Burns and then losing a debut to Grant Dawson, these are all things you got to come back from. And the cool thing about him is after he lost to Grant Dawson, he must have just been like, I'm going to glory and working out with Coach Krause. And since making that move, he's 2-0 in the UFC. We saw him choke out TJ Laramie, a big standout from the Dana White Contender Series himself. Got finished pretty quickly. And the cool thing about Darrick Minner's game is when you're looking for those takedowns, he's able to kind of grab that neck. He's got over 10 submissions via guillotine. And so any of those types of areas can be really dangerous for any fighter. And that takes us right into Darren Elkins, right? You talk about just the scar tissue and the damage this man can take. It's kind of insane. You talk about the Ryan Hall fight, right? Did a pretty good job of avoiding the areas where he shouldn't be, but the kicks just kept landing for Ryan Hall. That could have been a fight that could have easily gone his way had he done more offense and not been so scared to get into those deadly areas, because we saw what could happen to a guy like Ryan Hall against an Ilya Topuria who has zero fear of any of those things. And so going into this fight, he's coming off of that big W against Garagori. And what I loved about that fight is Darren Elkins finally fought his game. I'm taking on a good kickboxer. He's got power in his left hand. Let me just push this up against the fence, work some takedowns, work some wrestling, just to get him tired, make him work. It was just such a classic style of wrestling that you kind of see in MMA, right? You really want to tire your fighter out. You can even do damage up against the fence with some strikes, but the goal is to get it to the ground and get it to an opportune position, and that's exactly what he did. I felt like he was always in control of that fight, and when he's not, he looks kind of rough and takes a lot of damage. And Dominic Cruz said it best: when he's on the outside, he just seems to be fighting other people's fights. And so in this case, it's kind of the same thing, right? Darrick Minner, he's got good stand-up, but the thing that everybody talks about is just how good the BJJ is and how sneaky it is. It seems like he gets those guillotines in, areas where sometimes it just doesn't look like he could, but he does. And the one against TJ Laramie, the way he finished it was just so crisp and so clean that it really stuck with me. And then you talk about his following fight with Charlie Rosa. That's a really good feather in your cap, because you can think of Charles Rosa as a guy who can do everything pretty well. And I think for Darrick, it was one of those ones where couldn't really submit him, but was in good scrambles the whole time. Couldn't really knock him out, but was in great exchanges on the feet. So for me, that's the fight that kind of tells you just how good Darrick Minner is, because he just did so much work on the ground against Charlie Rosa, right? Like, I think that 12 minutes plus of control time really tells you where he's at. He landed 4 of his 5 takedowns. And so, I felt like outside of that first round, he really just kind of took it to him. He didn't even want to stand with Charlie at all. And that's what makes this fight really interesting, right? I think that one of Darrick's paths to victory is to actually entertain the stand-up just a little bit, to do some damage and to get Darren Elkins a bit more tired. Because if you look at the Garagori fight, a healthy, a confident, and a not so damaged Darren Elkins can actually very much have his way with you, especially as a wrestler and on the ground. And that's what Darrick Minner wants. But why not get him there when he's actually a little softened up? That's where I think that's where I think Darrick Minner has a really good opportunity to steal this fight. Because from the outside looking in, coming off of that win, I think Darren Elkins should finally have that confidence to say, hey, this is where I should be taking fights against the guys that maybe aren't the Charles Oliveira's or the Chad Mendez's or the Jeremy Stevens of the world. Can you believe that this man has already fought the lightweight and the featherweight champion? His second fight in the UFC was against Charles Oliveira, and he lost via submission in less than a minute. But then he also has a fight against Alexander Volkanovski fairly recently in his career that actually helped Volkanovski get into the ranks. I believe Darren Elkins was ranked 10th at the time, and Volkanovski was kind of on the come up. So in terms of talent and who he's fought, it's pretty insane to think that his career has, really started to be that back and forth style for a veteran after all of these super crazy fights against some of the best talent the UFC's ever seen. So that's where I'm actually giving Darren Elkins the edge here. I think that he's so durable and that he might not get caught with some of these submissions. The one thing for me, paths to victory, right? If Darrick Minner is finding that Darren Elkins is really very much exploiting him and trying to take him out against the fence the whole time and avoid any type of, striking game whatsoever, it's those guillotines, right? It's those rear nakeds. If he can get the back or if he can lock up a neck, he's been really, really successful with that. And I think those are the areas where Minner's always going to be a little bit sneaky. And if he can do damage on the feet, this is very much a fight that he can win. Whereas for Darren, it's actually the kind of opposite, right? I think for him, it's about working the wrestling, working that, damage up against the fence, get the guy tired so you can even have some success on the feet as a striker, because that seems to be where he wants to take the fight anyway. So in terms of past experience and just recency bias, I kind of side with Darren Elkins just in terms of game plan and just the quality of opponents that he's faced. But again, Darrick Minner coming off of such a dominant ground performance against Charlie Rosa tells me that there's a lot to be said about where he can take things. And just that guillotine, man, the way he can lock up a neck is just so beautiful. And I think that anyone's susceptible to that in the wrong position. And so let's go with Darren Elkins, a very, very, very slim favorite, if not a pick 'em. But I think this is anyone's fight, and I'd probably go popcorn with this one personally. But if you guys got to lean on it, by all means, let me know in the comment section. And there it is. Darrick Minner opening as a minus 163 favorite, with Darren Elkins coming in as a plus 120 dog. This is a hard fight to call, guys. Minus 163 is there. Minus 176 now, all the way up there, with Darren Elkins now hitting a plus 151. I don't think the line movement's suggesting anywhere close to what this fight actually is in terms of just the ability of chess match and just how close they are in terms of fight. Darren Elkins actually has the length advantage here, which tells me that even if he wanted to do the striking, those kicks and those long looping punches that he throws should actually have some success. And so dog or pass maybe, because I don't think Darrick Minner is worth a minus 180 personally. But if you have some huge belief in him absolutely, demolishing Darren Elkins, like I said, leave it in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe as we get into the next set of fights for the main card.